Actually, Senator Murray Byrne will be here probably in 2 minutes, but will we take Senator O'Donnell first? Would you be prepared to wait for Senator Byrne? Yeah, she's on her way. She's only 2 minutes away. So Niall Shannon O'Donnell. Tá fáilte wrote Minister Cannon, so I'll ask Shannon O'Donnell a right that Karen no media good.
Guramaigad a Cardios, Guramaigad Ira or Carlac, I won't need the 4 minutes. The question is very straightforward.
That's good.
And I want to thank Senator Niall O'Donnell.
Nice to see those kind of approaches to Christmas stuff.
You'd be encouraging that.
Yes, but I was in your position a few times in the past, and I often approached it similarly to see what the Minister would say. And, OK, Minister, I like that.
And I want to thank Senator O'Donnell for giving me the opportunity to address Shannon on this very important matter, which I believe is of interest to all members of the House. Earlier this month, the Government reviewed the progress on bills to amend the Constitution and decided that, subject to passage of the necessary constitutional amendment bills, 2 referendums will be held on the same day as the local and European elections in May of next year. These are due to take place between the 23rd and the 26th of May 2019. Work continues to be progressed in my department in consultation with the Department of Housing, Planning and Local Government on the issues necessary to inform the development of an appropriate constitutional amendment bill for the holding of a referendum on extending the franchise at presidential elections to all Irish citizens resident outside the state. As the Senator will recall, the Government decided on the 7th of March 2017 to accept in principle the main recommendation in the 5th report of the Convention on the Constitution, that citizens resident outside the state, including citizens resident in Northern Ireland, should have the right to vote at presidential elections, and that a referendum will be held to amend the Constitution to give effect to this. Following this announcement, an options paper, which is jointly prepared by my department and the Department of Housing, Planning and Local Government, was published on the 22nd of March 2017 to inform public debate on this very significant policy change. The options paper set out a broad range of options available to give effect to the possible extension of voting rights at presidential elections, and examined the key operational issues involved, including voter registration, the methods of voting, the implications for the administration of presidential elections, as well as the estimated costs associated with an extended franchise. In particular, the options paper considered 7 possible options for an extension of the franchise, ranging from all citizens resident outside of the state, to citizens who have had a period of time living in the state, to citizens who have left the state within a defined period of time, to citizens who were previously on the register of electors, to citizens who hold valid Irish passports, to citizens born on the island of Ireland, or to citizens born on the island, or to citizens who have lived in Ireland for at least 1 year. And the options paper also provided a focus for discussions at a dedicated session on voting rights held at the 2nd Global Irish Civic Forum on the 5th of May 2017. And at that forum, the almost unanimous view of participants in relation to those 7 options was that the franchise should be extended to all citizens resident outside the state. In addition, there was a strong view that an extension of the franchise should not be restricted by time by prior residence in the state, nor to previous registration in the state. And against that background, the next step will now involve bringing proposals to government in the early new year on the question of to whom, in particular, the vote should be extended. Ultimately, this will inform the drafting of the Constitutional Amendment Bill. Once the bill has been published in the Dáil, there will be a need for the Minister for Housing, Planning and Local Government to establish a referendum commission. And for a referendum commission to have enough time to carry out its functions, a period of approximately 16 weeks has been recommended by previous commissions as being an appropriate period in which the statutory functions involved can be satisfactorily undertaken. And in this regard, it should be noted that a referendum commission cannot be established until a constitutional amendment bill has been initiated. So in broad terms, this means that the bill should be drafted and published in the region of about 4 months prior to the holding of the referendum, with a good proportion of that period being between the passage of the bill and the polling day. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Donnghaile.
Yeah, Gurmaigat alas Cahirla Gogus Gurmaigat Arish Ira Minister. Just to begin by thanking you for the update. It's timely and it's very useful, and also to take the opportunity, Minister, to acknowledge your role. I was recently in London meeting with a number of diaspora groups and organisations there, representative of the Irish diaspora in Britain, and they all acknowledged your role, your leadership role in relation to the issues pertaining to them, but not least in relation to this important referendum. So the timeline is clear, Minister, in terms of how it's outlined and what the next step should be. I would just hone in, if you don't mind, in terms of your last paragraph there. In broad terms, this means that the bill should be drafted and published in the region of about 4 months prior to the holding of the referendum. So that would be very early into the new year. You're talking late January, early February, and it would be just to ask how confident you are that that will happen, that that's still on course to happen. And I mean, I can't come in. I often come in and criticise government in this chamber, but I can't criticise government in terms of their diligent approach to this issue. They've been steadfast on it, and as we get tantalisingly close to this referendum, it's just to ensure that we see it over the line in terms of the processes that are required. So it's just to finish with that question, Minister.
Thank you, Senator. Minister.
Thank you, Senator. And first of all, thank you for taking the time to engage with our diaspora groups in the UK. I've been making the point, as best I can, to all of our diaspora groups around the world that they need to become very actively involved in this campaign in the run-up to the referendum next May. And I am very confident that the necessary legislation will be in place during the timeline referred to in my earlier contribution.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Senator. That concludes that commencement matter, and now we'll proceed to our final